The signal came from a small blue planet in a quiet corner of the galaxy. Commander Zeth Ara of the Altrurian Science Fleet studied the data streaming across his display. Radio waves, primitive but organized. The planet's inhabitants were broadcasting stories, music, and something else that made his 3 hearts skip a beat. "Sir," his communications officer called out, her voice tight with concern. "You need to see this." The main screen flickered to life, showing intercepted transmissions from Earth. Images of humans fighting with metal weapons, explosions tearing through cities, and soldiers marching in formation. The bridge crew watched in uncomfortable silence as the primitive species demonstrated an alarming enthusiasm for violence. "How many conflicts are currently active on their planet?" Zeth Ara asked. 17 major wars, sir. Dozens of smaller ones. They seem to fight constantly." The commander's tentacles writhed with distaste. In the 1,000 years since the Altrurians had achieved spaceflight, they had not seen a single war. Most civilized species moved beyond such barbarism within centuries of developing agriculture. Yet these humans appeared to have perfected the art of killing each other. "Send a report to the Galactic Council," Zeth Ara ordered. "We found another species, but they're still in their primitive warrior phase. They'll need extensive guidance to join civilized society." 3 years later, the humans proved they could build faster-than-light ships. The first human vessel to reach Council space was a sleek craft called the Endeavor. It carried a delegation of 12 humans led by a woman named Ambassador Chen. The Council chambers on Altrurian Prime buzzed with curiosity as the humans were escorted in. They looked remarkably similar to several other species. 2 arms, 2 legs, forward-facing eyes. But there was something different about how they moved. They walked with purpose, their eyes constantly scanning their surroundings, noting exits and potential threats. "Welcome to the Galactic Council," High Counselor Vex Thran announced, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. "We are pleased to meet another species ready to join the community of civilized worlds." Ambassador Chen bowed politely. "Thank you for this opportunity. Humanity looks forward to learning from our galactic neighbors." Council member Jaxco of the Cathari Empire leaned forward. The warrior species was known for their honor-based combat traditions. "We observed your transmissions before your arrival. Your people seem quite enthusiastic about warfare." Chen's expression remained diplomatic. "Humanity has experienced conflicts, yes, but we've also learned from them. We maintain professional military forces to protect our interests and ensure peace." The council members exchanged glances. Professional military forces? Most species had small peacekeeping units or ceremonial guards. The way Chen spoke made it sound like humans took this much more seriously. "How large are these military forces?" asked Counselor Nexval of the Peaceful Traders Union. "Large enough," Chen replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. High Counselor Vex Thran waved a dismissive hand. "No matter. All young species go through aggressive phases. With proper guidance, humanity will learn to resolve disputes through negotiation and compromise as civilized beings do." Behind Chen, a younger human named Colonel Martinez shifted slightly. Several council members noticed his hand instinctively move toward his hip, where a weapon might hang, before he caught himself and returned to attention. "How curious that humans traveled with military personnel on diplomatic missions." "We appreciate your offer of guidance," Chen said carefully. "However, humanity has developed its own methods for maintaining peace and stability. We found that strength and preparedness often prevent conflicts before they begin." The council members smiled indulgently. Such naive thinking was common among warrior species. They would learn. Over the following weeks, the humans toured council facilities and met with various species. They asked many questions about galactic politics, trade routes, and military capabilities. The council members assumed this was natural curiosity from a newly spacefaring species. What they didn't notice were the subtle ways the humans gathered intelligence. Colonel Martinez memorized the layouts of every facility they visited. Ambassador Chen's aide took detailed notes on ship designs visible in the spaceports. The humans' questions about defensive capabilities and response times seemed innocent enough. During a dinner with Cathari warriors, the subject of combat came up. The Cathari spoke proudly of their dueling traditions, their codes of honor, and their ceremonial battles. "On Earth," Colonel Martinez said quietly, "we learned that honor doesn't stop bullets." The Cathari looked confused. "Bullets?" "Projectile weapons, small metal pieces fired at high speed." Martinez paused. We used them for about 600 years before moving to energy weapons. You developed energy weapons? A Cathari warrior asked, impressed despite himself. Eventually, though kinetic weapons still have their uses in certain situations. The humans spoke casually about military technology and tactics, but something in their tone suggested experience rather than theoretical knowledge. When pressed for details, they politely changed the subject. The breaking point came during a council session about territorial disputes. Two minor species were arguing over mining rights to an asteroid field. The debate had dragged on for months with no resolution. On Earth, Ambassador Chen observed, we would resolve this through negotiation backed by the implicit threat of force. Both parties understand the consequences of unreasonable behavior. Councillor Vex Thran looked shocked. You would threaten violence over mining rights? Not threaten, Chen corrected. Simply make it clear that all parties have something to lose if negotiations fail. It encourages compromise, but that's barbaric. Chen's expression hardened slightly. It's realistic. In our experience, species only negotiate in good faith when they understand the alternatives. The council session ended in uncomfortable silence. That evening, several council members met privately to discuss the human problem. They're more primitive than we thought, Councillor Jaxco said. They actually believe military force has a place in civilized society. Perhaps we should offer them protected status, suggested Vex Thran. Full council membership might be premature until they evolve beyond their warrior nature. Agreed. We'll assign them to Altrurian oversight. A few decades of proper guidance should help them mature as a species. The next day, the council formally offered humanity protected membership status. Ambassador Chen listened to the terms with a poker face that would have impressed professional gamblers back on Earth. We appreciate the generous offer, she said finally. Humanity accepts probationary membership under the understanding that we will eventually qualify for full status. What the council didn't realize was that hidden sensors throughout human space had been monitoring galactic communications for months. Earth's military command knew about the Korthax hegemony massing beyond the galactic rim. They knew about the council's military weaknesses and outdated tactics. They knew that humanity's new neighbors were about to face a threat they were utterly unprepared for. As the Endeavour prepared to return to Earth, Colonel Martinez stood in the observation deck watching alien ships go about their peaceful business. Think they'll survive what's coming? Asked his aide. Martinez was quiet for a long moment. Not without help, they won't. And if they reject our help because we're too primitive? The colonel's smile was cold. Then they'll learn the difference between peace through weakness and peace through strength. The hard way. Ambassador Chen joined them at the window. Any word from home? The 7th Fleet is conducting exercises near Jupiter, Martinez reported. Just in case, Chen nodded. The humans had tried diplomacy and been dismissed as barbaric children. When the real barbarians came calling, perhaps the galaxy would finally understand what a professional army truly meant. The first warning came from a mining station at the galaxy's edge. Chief Engineer Paxvel was checking ore samples when his communication array exploded with panicked transmissions. This is Mining Station Zeta 9. We're under attack! Ships everywhere. They're not responding to our hails. The transmission cut to static. Within hours, similar reports flooded the Council's communication networks. Outer colonies went silent one by one, their final messages describing massive fleets of organic-looking vessels that appeared without warning and showed no interest in negotiation. High Councillor Vex Thran called an emergency session. The great chamber filled with representatives from dozens of species, their voices creating a chaotic buzz of fear and confusion. Order. Order. Vex Thran's voice boomed over the noise. We have confirmed reports of hostile forces attacking our outer territories. Intelligence suggests they call themselves the Korthax hegemony. A hologram appeared above the chamber floor, showing the galaxy's spiral arms. Red markers indicated confirmed attacks spreading inward like a disease. What do we know about them? Asked Councillor Jaxco. Admiral Zexkol of the Altrurian Defense Force stood up. The Korthax are an insectoid species from beyond the galactic rim. Our deep space monitors detected their scout fleets 3 years ago, but we assumed they would respect our territorial boundaries. Nervous laughter rippled through the chamber. The concept of not respecting boundaries was alien to most council species. They appear to use biological technology, the Admiral continued. Their ships are grown rather than built, Early reports suggest they're extremely aggressive and show no interest in communication. Have we attempted first contact protocols? Asked a representative from the Peaceful Traders Union. Every colony that tried to negotiate was destroyed within hours. Silence fell over the chamber. This was unprecedented. In the 1,000 years of the Galactic Council, no species had ever refused to at least listen to diplomatic overtures. Very well, Vex Thrawn announced. We'll mobilize the Defense Coalition. All member species will contribute what forces they can. Over the following days, the galaxy's greatest military minds gathered to plan their response. It quickly became clear that the word military meant very different things to different species. The Altrurians contributed their largest ships, impressive-looking vessels designed for peacekeeping operations and disaster relief. Their crews were well-trained in search and rescue operations, riot control, and delivering humanitarian aid. None had ever fired a weapon in anger. The Cathari brought their warrior fleets, sleek ships designed for honorable single combat. Their crews lived by ancient codes that emphasized individual prowess and fair fighting. The concept of overwhelming force or attacking retreating enemies was considered deeply dishonorable. Other species offered what they could. Cargo haulers converted to carry weapons, science vessels equipped with defensive systems, and even luxury yachts fitted with mining lasers. It was an impressive fleet by Council standards, over 3,000 vessels representing the combined might of 47 civilizations. Admiral Zex Cole studied tactical reports in his command center, trying to make sense of Korthak's battle patterns. Their ships moved in massive swarms, coordinating attacks with precision that suggested hive mind intelligence. They used biological weapons that could dissolve ship hulls and corrupted electronic systems with some kind of viral attack. Sir, his aide reported, we're receiving casualty reports from the Cathari engagement at Rigel Station. Zex Cole reviewed the data with growing concern. The Cathari had fought bravely, challenging Korthak's ships to single combat according to their traditions. The aliens had responded by swarming individual Cathari vessels with dozens of bioships, showing no interest in honorable warfare. 3/4 of the Cathari fleet was destroyed or disabled. Similar reports came in from other fronts. Alturian peacekeeping tactics proved useless against enemies who ignored surrender signals and targeting non-essential systems. Trading vessels armed with improvised weapons were slaughtered when they tried to use commercial shipping patterns against military formations. Admiral, his communications officer called out, "We're receiving a message from Earth. They're offering military assistance." Zex Cole frowned. The humans had been oddly quiet since the invasion began. Their ambassador had attended council sessions but said little, occasionally asking technical questions about Korthak's capabilities. What are they offering? Transport ships? Medical supplies? They didn't specify, sir. Ambassador Chen just said humanity would contribute what we can to the defense effort. The Admiral sighed. Every contribution helped, even from the primitive warrior species. Tell them to meet the main fleet at Rally Point 7, beyond the Altrurian home system. What Admiral Zex Cole didn't know was that deep in human space, Earth's military command had been watching the invasion with professional interest. General Sarah Marcus stood in the Pentagon's war room, studying holographic displays of Korthak's tactics and council responses. Assessment? She asked her staff. The council forces are brave but completely unprepared, Colonel Martinez reported. He had returned from his diplomatic mission with detailed intelligence on galactic military capabilities. They're treating this like a police action rather than total war. Korthak's capabilities, impressive numbers and biological technology, but their tactics are predictable. They rely on overwhelming force and psychological warfare. Standard swarm doctrine with centralized command structures. General Marcus nodded. Recommendation? Deploy the 7th Fleet full combat load. These Korthaks are dangerous, but they're fighting amateurs. Time to show them what professionals look like. Rules of engagement? Whatever it takes to stop them. The Council species are allies now, whether they admit it or not. General Marcus turned to the wall display showing Earth's orbital shipyards. Massive vessels hung in space like sleeping giants, their angular surfaces bristling with weapon systems that had been refined through centuries of human warfare. Signal the 7th Fleet. Admiral Harrison has operational command. Tell her to prepare for extended deployment. Ma'am, Colonel Martinez said quietly. The Council thinks we're primitives. They're not expecting much from us. General Marcus smiled coldly. Then they're in for quite a surprise. As the human fleet prepared for departure, Ambassador Chen received new orders from Earth. She was to observe Council military operations and provide intelligence support to the incoming fleet. Most importantly, she was to document everything for the historical record. Humanity was about to introduce the galaxy to concepts it had forgotten or never learned. Total war, combined arms tactics, and the professional military mindset that viewed warfare not as an honorable sport but as organized violence in service of political objectives. The Council species had spent centuries evolving beyond their warrior phases. They had forgotten that sometimes when faced with true predators, the only choice was to become apex predators themselves. The Korthax were about to learn why humans had never evolved past their warrior phase. They had simply gotten better at it. Admiral Zexkol stood on his command bridge watching the assembled Council fleet through the viewport. 3,000 vessels of various shapes and sizes floated in formation around Altrurian Prime. It was the largest military gathering in galactic history, representing the combined might of 47 civilizations. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the human contribution is approaching from hyperspace vector 7. Zexkol nodded absently. The humans had been allocated a small section of the formation. He expected perhaps a dozen converted cargo vessels or a few patrol craft. Every contribution helped, even from species still learning civilized warfare. The hyperspace portal opened. What emerged made the Admiral's 3 hearts stop beating. The first ship through was a monster, nearly 2 kilometers long. Its angular hull bristled with weapon systems and sensor arrays. Gun turrets dotted its surface like metallic growths, each one larger than most Council vessels' main armaments. Armor plating covered every surface, giving it the appearance of a predator built for war. "By the ancestors," someone whispered on the bridge, but that was only the beginning. More ships followed, each one a testament to humanity's approach to space combat. Sleek cruisers with missile pods, destroyers designed for speed and firepower, support vessels carrying equipment the Council couldn't identify. "How many ships are they sending?" Zexkol asked weakly. His communications officer checked her displays twice before answering. "Sir, 312 vessels. The lead ship is identifying itself as the TNS Indomitable, flagship of the 7th Expeditionary Fleet." The human fleet moved with mechanical precision, taking up positions in the formation without a single wasted maneuver. Their ships maintained perfect spacing, responded to formation changes instantly, and radiated an aura of barely contained violence that made the peaceful Council vessels look like pleasure craft. "Admiral," the communications officer announced, "we're receiving a transmission from the human flagship. Admiral Harrison requests permission to come aboard for tactical discussions." An hour later, Admiral Zexkol met the human fleet commander in his conference room. Admiral Sarah Harrison was a compact woman with gray-streaked hair and eyes that missed nothing. She was accompanied by Colonel Martinez and a staff of officers who moved with the controlled efficiency of professional soldiers. "Thank you for meeting with us," Harrison said, taking a seat at the conference table. "We've reviewed the tactical situation and have some observations." Zexkol gestured for her to continue. Despite himself, he was impressed by the human fleet's size and obvious combat capability. "The Korthax are using standard swarm tactics with centralized command nodes," Harrison began, "activating a holographic display. Your current formation leaves you vulnerable to envelopment attacks and gives them multiple targets for biological weapons." The hologram showed the Council fleet's battle line formation, ships arranged in neat rows, like a parade ground display. "We suggest a more flexible deployment," Harrison continued. The display shifted to show ships arranged in overlapping spheres with gaps between formations. "This gives us fields of fire, prevents mass biological contamination, and allows for tactical withdrawal if necessary." Zexkol studied the formation. It looked chaotic compared to traditional Council tactics. "What about coordination? How do we maintain command and control?" "Each formation operates independently with pre-assigned objectives. If the command structure is compromised, individual units continue the mission according to established protocols." "But that's barbaric. How can we ensure honor in combat without proper oversight?" The human officers exchanged glances. Colonel Martinez leaned forward. Admiral, with respect, honor doesn't matter if you're dead. The Korthax aren't interested in fair fights. They want to kill you as efficiently as possible. Then how do we defeat them? Admiral Harrison's smile was cold. We kill them first. More efficiently. The tactical planning session continued for hours. The humans presented concepts that were alien to Council thinking. Acceptable loss ratios, strategic depth, combined arms tactics, and electronic warfare. They spoke casually of suppression fire and kill zones using terminology that suggested extensive experience with large-scale combat. How large is Earth's military? Zexkall asked during a break. The 7th Fleet represents about 3% of our active forces, Harrison replied matter-of-factly. We maintain additional reserves for homeland defense. Zexkall's tentacles writhed with shock. 3%? The humans had brought more firepower than some entire species possessed, and it was barely a fraction of their capability. Why do you maintain such large military forces? He asked. Surely Earth is peaceful now. Colonel Martinez answered quietly. Admiral, in the last 100 years alone, Earth has fought 2 global wars, dozens of regional conflicts, and countless smaller engagements. We learned that the price of unpreparedness is extinction. But you've achieved spaceflight. Surely your species has evolved beyond warfare? The humans looked at him with expressions mixing pity and confusion. Evolution doesn't eliminate predators, Admiral Harrison said. It just makes them better at hunting. Later that day, Admiral Zexkall watched human ships conduct training exercises. What he saw challenged everything he thought he knew about space combat. Human vessels moved in coordinated wolf packs, appearing at multiple vectors simultaneously. They used electronic warfare to blind mock enemies, then struck with precision that was almost artistic. When damaged ships were designated as casualties, others immediately moved to cover them while maintaining formation integrity. Sir, his tactical officer reported, the human destroyers just executed a 17-ship coordinated missile barrage. Target acquisition to impact was 14 seconds. 14 seconds? That was impossibly fast. They're using some kind of networked targeting system. All ships in a formation share sensor data and coordinate attacks automatically. On the display, human cruisers demonstrated what they called suppression tactics, using rapid-fire weapons to prevent enemy ships from returning effective fire while friendly forces maneuvered for killing shots. It was ruthlessly efficient and utterly without honor. The most disturbing demonstration came when human Marines showed their boarding capabilities. Unlike Cathari warriors who fought individual duels aboard captured ships, human Marines moved in coordinated teams. They used suppressive fire, explosives, and tactics designed to clear enemy vessels room by room with minimal casualties to their own forces. They fight like machines, observed a Cathari officer. No, Admiral Zexkall corrected quietly. They fight like professionals. That evening, Ambassador Chen joined the senior staff for dinner. The conversation turned to human military history. Your species seems remarkably experienced in warfare, Zexkall observed diplomatically. Chen nodded. We've had considerable practice, approximately 5,000 years of recorded conflicts, each one teaching us lessons about tactics, strategy, and logistics. 5,000 years? A trader union representative looked horrified. How did your civilization survive? By learning from every war, every battle, every tactical innovation. We study military history the way other species study art or literature. Every conflict becomes part of our collective knowledge base. But surely you must desire peace? Chen's expression grew thoughtful. We do desire peace, Admiral. But we've learned that peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of justice backed by strength. The Korthax understand only force. That's the language we'll speak to them. As the human fleet prepared for combat, alien observers began to understand what they were witnessing. These weren't primitive warriors playing with advanced toys. These were the products of a species that had never stopped refining the art of war. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when professional soldiers met alien predators. For the first time in the invasion, the Korthax were going to face prey that could bite back. The Korthax fleet arrived at Kepler's gate like a plague of locusts. Thousands of bioships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their organic hulls pulsing with alien energy. Each vessel looked like it had been grown rather than built, with surfaces that shifted and writhed as they moved. Admiral Zexkall watched from his flagship as sensor readings updated. How many? he asked his tactical officer. Over 8,000 confirmed contacts, sir. More are still arriving. The Council fleet seemed pitifully small in comparison. 3,000 vessels against an armada that outnumbered them nearly 3-1. But they had no choice. Kepler's gate was the primary hyperspace junction leading to the galaxy's core worlds. If the Korthax broke through here, 50 billion civilians would be at their mercy. All ships assume battle formation. Zexkol ordered. Prepare for engagement. The Council fleet arranged itself in traditional battle lines, with the largest ships at the center and smaller vessels protecting the flanks. It was the same formation used in ceremonial displays and the few skirmishes in galactic history. The Korthax response was immediate and devastating. Their bioships surged forward in massive swarms, ignoring the neat formations entirely. They attacked from multiple vectors at once, their organic weapons spitting acid and biological contaminants that ate through shield generators and hull plating. Within minutes, the battle line was in chaos. Altrurian peacekeeping vessels found their riot control systems useless against enemies that didn't respond to warning shots or surrender demands. Cathari warriors challenged individual Korthax ships to honorable combat, only to be swarmed by dozens of bioships that showed no interest in fair fighting. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "the center is breaking. Multiple ships are reporting hull breaches and system failures." Admiral Zexkol watched his careful formations dissolve into a panicked retreat. The Korthax pressed their advantage, their bioships moving with hive-mind precision to exploit every weakness. Then the human fleet engaged. Admiral Harrison's voice came over the tactical network with mechanical calm. "All units, this is Indomitable Actual. Execute Plan Delta, I repeat, execute Plan Delta." The human ships didn't form a battle line. Instead, they split into multiple wolf packs and attacked from unexpected angles. The lead destroyers launched a massive missile barrage that lit up space with nuclear fire, while cruisers used electronic warfare to blind Korthax sensors. "What are they doing?" Zexkol asked, watching the tactical display in confusion. Colonel Martinez, who had remained on the Altrurian flagship as a liaison, stepped forward. "Combined arms tactics, Admiral. The missiles aren't meant to destroy the bioships. They're meant to break up their formations and create opportunities for precision strikes." As if to prove his point, human battleships emerged from behind the expanding fireball and opened fire with weapons that could crack planets. But they weren't firing randomly. Each shot was precisely targeted at Korthax command nodes that had been identified by the missile strike. The effect was immediate. Korthax formations that had been moving with perfect coordination suddenly became chaotic as their command structure was systematically destroyed. "Sir," the tactical officer reported, "the human ships are requesting permission to pursue retreating Korthax vessels." "Granted," Zexkol said automatically, then paused. "Wait, retreating? The Korthax are retreating?" On the display, hundreds of bioships were indeed falling back from the human attack. But instead of the chaotic rout that had characterized Council retreats, this was an organized withdrawal with rearguard actions. The humans didn't let them go. Human destroyer packs harassed the retreating Korthax, using hit-and-run tactics to prevent them from regrouping. When bioships tried to form defensive screens, human cruisers appeared from unexpected vectors and shattered them with concentrated fire. "They're not letting the enemy disengage," Colonel Martinez explained. "In human military doctrine, you don't give a dangerous enemy time to regroup and try again. You finish the fight while you have the advantage." The battle's turning point came when Admiral Harrison personally led a boarding assault on the Korthax flagship. The massive bioship was still functional despite suffering heavy damage, and its command node was coordinating the remaining alien forces. "All Marine units, prepare for hostile boarding action," Harrison announced. "Remember your training. No heroics, no individual glory. You go in as a team, you fight as a team, you come home as a team." Admiral Zexkol watched in fascination and horror as human assault shuttles approached the Korthax flagship. Unlike Cathari boarding actions that emphasized individual warrior prowess, the humans moved with mechanical precision. Marine teams breached the bioship's hull simultaneously at multiple points. They used explosives to create entry points, suppressive fire to clear initial resistance, and advanced room by room using tactics refined through centuries of urban warfare. The Korthax defenders were unlike anything in the galaxy's experience. They were insectoid creatures the size of small vehicles, with natural armor and biological weapons that could dissolve metal on contact. Their hive-mind coordination made them incredibly dangerous in close combat. But the human Marines had faced dangerous enemies before. They used coordinated fire to suppress Korthax movement, explosives to collapse tunnel systems, and flamethrowers to clear biological contamination. When individual Marines were wounded, others immediately moved to cover them while combat medics provided aid. Squad leaders, this is Harrison. The Admiral's voice came over the Marine communication network. Remember, we're not here to hold territory. We're here to destroy their command capacity and gather intelligence. Hit the objectives and get out. The alien observers watched in amazement as human soldiers demonstrated the difference between fighting for honor and fighting to win. They worked together like components of a single weapon, each Marine knowing exactly what others would do in any situation. The breakthrough came when Sergeant Rodriguez's squad reached the bioship's nerve center. Instead of engaging in individual combat with the Korthax queens controlling the ship, the Marines simply planted demolition charges and withdrew. The explosion that followed crippled the Korthax flagship and severed its connection to the remaining fleet. Bioships throughout the system suddenly lost coordination, their hive-mind network disrupted by the destruction of a key node. All units, this is indomitable, Admiral Harrison announced. Enemy command structure is compromised. Execute pursuit protocols. Do not allow enemy forces to escape and regroup. What followed wasn't a battle, it was a systematic destruction of a broken enemy. Human ships hunted down fleeing Korthax vessels with ruthless efficiency, using superior speed and firepower to prevent any organized resistance. The few bioships that managed to reach hyperspace broadcast emergency signals back toward Korthax space. The messages were simple. Beware the killer species. They fight like death itself. When the battle ended, Admiral Zexkol surveyed the aftermath in stunned silence. The space around Kepler's gate was littered with the wreckage of thousands of bioships. The Korthax invasion force had been annihilated so thoroughly that survivors could be counted in the dozens rather than thousands. Council losses had been significant in the first phase of the battle, but human intervention had prevented a complete disaster. More importantly, the galaxy had witnessed something unprecedented, an alien invasion force that had been not merely defeated, but professionally dismantled. Admiral Harrison, Zexkol called over the communication link. That was extraordinary. How did you know their tactics would work? Harrison's voice carried a note of tired satisfaction. Admiral, humanity has been fighting wars for 5,000 years. We've learned that enemies who rely on intimidation and overwhelming force usually can't adapt when their initial plan fails. The Korthax made the mistake of treating warfare like a natural disaster. We taught them it's a science. As rescue operations began and the scope of the human victory became clear, word spread throughout Council space. Humanity hadn't just contributed to the defense effort, they had saved the galaxy from conquest. But for the humans themselves, it was simply another day at the office. Professional soldiers doing what professional soldiers do, applying organized violence in service of political objectives with maximum efficiency and minimum sentiment. The galaxy was beginning to understand what they had invited into their community. 3 weeks after the Battle of Kepler's Gate, the Galactic Council convened for the most important session in its 1,000-year history. Representatives from every member species filled the Great Chamber, but all eyes were on the human delegation seated in what had once been the junior members section. High Counselor Vex Thrawn called for order, though his voice carried none of its usual authority. The comfortable certainties of galactic civilization had been shattered, and everyone knew it. We gathered today, he began, to formally acknowledge the events at Kepler's Gate and their implications for our community. The holographic display showed battle statistics that seemed impossible. The Korthax invasion force, 8,000 bioships representing the accumulated military might of an entire stellar empire, had been reduced to scattered wreckage in less than 18 hours. Council forces had suffered significant casualties in the initial engagement, but human intervention had turned certain defeat into total victory. The Defense Coalition suffered the loss of 437 vessels with nearly 2 million casualties. Vex Thrawn continued. However, enemy losses exceeded 7,000 ships with minimal survivors. The invasion threat has been definitively ended. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Everyone had seen the after-action reports, but hearing the numbers spoken aloud made the human achievement even more staggering. Ambassador Chen rose from her seat when recognized. She looked the same as she had months ago during first contact, but now her presence carried weight that commanded attention. "The Council has questions," she said simply. "We're prepared to answer them." Councillor Jaxco of the Cathari Empire stood first. His warrior species had suffered heavily in the battle, and his tone carried a mixture of respect and bewilderment. "Ambassador Chen," he began, "our military analysts have studied the battle recordings. Human tactics appear to violate every principle of honorable warfare. You showed no interest in single combat, offered no quarter to retreating enemies, and used deception as a primary weapon. How do you justify such methods?" Chen's expression remained diplomatically neutral. "Councillor Jaxco, with respect, the Korthax weren't interested in honor. They came to exterminate your species. We responded appropriately. But surely there are rules of engagement, codes of conduct that govern civilized warfare?" "There are," Chen replied. "We followed them exactly. The rules state that military force should be applied to achieve political objectives with minimum waste of resources. The political objective was stopping the Korthax invasion. We achieved it efficiently." Admiral Zexkol stood next. "Ambassador, our intelligence estimates suggest the 7th Fleet represents only a small fraction of human military capacity. Is this accurate?" Chen glanced at Colonel Martinez, who nodded. "The 7th Fleet is approximately 3% of our active forces. We maintain larger reserves for homeland defense and other potential threats." Shocked silence filled the chamber. 3%. The humans had casually deployed more firepower than most species possessed in total, and it was barely a fraction of their capability. "How is such military capacity possible?" asked a representative from the Peaceful Traders Union. "The resources required must be enormous. Military spending represents about 15% of Earth's total economic output," Chen replied. "We consider it a reasonable investment in survival." 15%? Councillor Nexval looked horrified. "That's barbaric. Civilized species spend perhaps 1% on peacekeeping forces." Colonel Martinez spoke for the first time. "With respect, Councillor, civilized species just had their colonies burned and their populations enslaved. Our barbaric spending prevented the same fate for the core worlds." The uncomfortable truth hung in the chamber's air. The galaxy's most peaceful, advanced civilizations had been helpless against a single alien invasion. Only the primitive humans had possessed the military capability to stop it. High Councillor Vex Thrawn raised his hand for quiet. "Ambassador Chen, help us understand. Why does humanity maintain such extensive military forces? Surely your world is at peace now." Chen exchanged glances with her delegation before answering. "Councillor, Earth achieved global peace 70 years ago. But peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of sufficient strength to deter aggression. We learned through bitter experience that unprepared civilizations don't survive contact with hostile forces. But you've evolved beyond warfare, surely?" "No," Chen said quietly. "We've perfected it." The admission sent shockwaves through the chamber. Every civilized species believed that military advancement was a phase that mature civilizations outgrew. The humans were suggesting something far more disturbing, that they had never outgrown it because they couldn't afford to. "Every human conflict," Chen continued, "from ancient tribal raids to global wars to interplanetary campaigns, has contributed to our military knowledge base. We study tactics developed 3,000 years ago alongside innovations from last year. Every battle teaches us something new about combat, logistics, leadership, and survival." "You make war sound like science," observed a representative from the academic consortium. "It is science," Colonel Martinez replied. "The systematic application of force to achieve political objectives. We've been refining it for millennia." The session continued for hours as the implications became clear. Humanity hadn't stumbled into military superiority through luck or accident. They had developed it deliberately, systematically as a species-wide survival mechanism. The turning point came when Councillor Jaxco asked the question everyone was thinking. "What happens now? You've demonstrated that human military power far exceeds our combined capabilities. What are your intentions?" Ambassador Chen stood slowly and the chamber fell silent. "Our intentions are the same as they've always been, Councillor. We want to explore the galaxy, learn from other species, and contribute to galactic civilization. But we also want to survive, and we want our allies to survive. Allies. The Korthax were just the beginning. Our deep space monitors have detected other threats beyond the galactic rim. Species that make the Korthax look like peaceful traders. The galaxy needs protection, whether it wants to admit it or not. The harsh reality hit the Council like a physical blow. Their comfortable isolation was ending. The universe was full of predators, and they had been prey waiting to be discovered. What do you propose? Vex Thrawn asked quietly. A new approach to galactic defense. Real military forces, professional training, and the will to use force when necessary. We're willing to help, but we won't do it alone. Every species needs to contribute according to their capabilities. And if some species refuse, Chen's smile was cold but not unkind, then they'll learn the same lesson the Council almost learned at Kepler's gate. The universe doesn't care about your desire for peace. It only respects strength. Over the following days, private meetings transformed the political landscape. Species after species approached the human delegation with requests for military advisors, training programs, and defense agreements. The galaxy's balance of power had shifted permanently. A week later, the Council voted unanimously to elevate humanity to senior membership status and establish the Galactic Defense Force with Admiral Harrison as its first commander. The decision was presented as voluntary cooperation, but everyone understood the reality. The galaxy's survival now depended on the goodwill of the species they had dismissed as primitive barbarians. As the human delegation prepared to return to Earth, Ambassador Chen stood in her quarters reviewing the transformation. In less than 6 months, humanity had gone from protected junior members to the galaxy's reluctant guardians. Colonel Martinez joined her at the viewport, watching alien ships maneuver with the awkward precision of students learning lessons they wished they didn't need. Think they'll learn? He asked. Some will, Chen replied. Others will cling to the belief that peace comes from being peaceful rather than being strong. The universe will teach them the difference. And us? What happens to humanity now? Chen was quiet for a long moment, watching the stars. We become what we've always been, Colonel. Soldiers. The question is whether we can remain human while serving as the galaxy's sword and shield. The future stretched ahead, full of challenges that would test humanity's military might and moral character. Other threats were coming from beyond the galactic rim, species that would make the Korthax invasion look like a police action. The galaxy would need humanity's strength to survive. But perhaps more importantly, humanity would need the galaxy's wisdom to remain worthy of the power they wielded. The greatest battle of all would be fought not against alien invaders, but against the temptation to become the very monsters they were sworn to fight. In the end, the galaxy had learned what a human professional army truly was. Not just a weapon, but a responsibility. And humanity had learned that being the strongest didn't make them the rulers, it made them the guardians. Whether they could live up to that burden would determine the fate of both humanity and the galaxy they had sworn to protect.